Today we have DC Long, an Army combat veteran who witnessed a hovering monolithic structure in an underground facility on an Army base. DC Long, you're in the U.S. Army, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. 1997 to 2013 was your service, medically retired from injuries received from a combat jump. Your father was a government contractor also at Fort Bragg. And you had a encounter with what we call monolithic slab hovering off the ground at range 19 at a secret underground bunker. And so we're here to document that testimony. When was that? When did this happen?
That happened in 2011. At the end of 2010, beginning of 2011, when I was still in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Were you still active?
Yes, I was. And incidentally, it had nothing to do with my military career. Anything that I did in service had absolutely nothing to do with it, in the sense that, as you said, my father was a government contractor. And on occasion, I had a 30% stake in the business. So he would ask me to help him out whenever I could. So I took leave. I came back down to Carolina to help him out. That day, the day in question, he was in the 18th Airborne Headquarters, G5 War Room. What he was doing there, I didn't ask. He didn't tell me. But that's where I met him. He told me that we were going to get an escort from JFK Warfare to take us over to a place called Range 19.
Just real quick, what was your dad's business as a contractor?
Whatever you needed, as long as you had plans.
It was construction.
Right. That was the main purview. Just
Why do you think you guys got selected to do this?
Well, as long as my dad was there, he's always had hunting land in North Carolina. And a lot of the guys from group that he met there would come down to his land, go hunting with him. A couple of the Delta Cats that he knew take us on their planes. We'd go down to Arkansas and do some duck hunting. And it's all over the U.S., Montana, Colorado, Mesa, elk hunts, bear hunts. Yeah, it's just the guys who were into it, that's how they got tied in. The day that I met him up there, like I said, the escort comes to meet us. It's one of the guys that he knew, that he had hunted with. I didn't know this gentleman. But they pick us up in a van. We get in the back of it. There's only one direction you can go to get to the live fire ranges, to get to the drop zones and things like that. So I assume we were headed towards Sicily or Normandy drop zone, because that was the direction we were going. The van that they had us in, it didn't have any windows. You couldn't see to the front. It was just a cattle car. And we were joking they were going to take us away, asking what he did, and we're going to head to Leavenworth for a little while. But we get there, and as soon as the door opened, it looked like a literal dump. There was just trash everywhere. Not like people just leaving stuff out. It was an actual dump. There was a 45-degree concrete door setting out of one of these hills that was directly in front of us, no further than you and I are to each other now. And so we go inside, meet another escort in there. Take us to this freight elevator. We get in there, there's 2 series of buttons, didn't have any writing on it. One of the guys looks at my dad and is saying to both of us, keep your head down, your eyes on the heels of the man in front of you, or you'll be shot. And we kind of started giggling because, at least I knew one of the guys was one of his buddies, people that he used to hunt out with. And the other guy, I recognized him as the guy who we went hunting with before. I knew later on that they were both Delta operators.
You're seeing familiar faces, which makes you comfortable.
Right.
And you don't realize how...
The shitstorm I just stepped into? Yeah, absolutely not.
What exactly were you guys there to do?
What he told me was that we were going down below ground to set up a shoot house.
Okay.
An indoor live fire range that was going to be underground. Nothing new. Again, yeah, I didn't think anything of it. We had done other shoot houses before with the open tops that can be viewed from above.
Didn't even phase you.
It was just another day at work.
Okay.
And I was just there to help him out. But we get down, the doors open, and as soon as I looked past them, I could see this giant monolithic slab just sitting there. At first, it didn't, once again, it didn't set off any alarms. I didn't think much of it, but the closer we got to it, I could feel this intense vibration. But you couldn't hear anything. It was dead silent in there. The loudest thing was the footsteps that I could hear. And
What did the vibration feel like?
it felt like being at a concert, standing next to one of the speakers, and
Without
the
the
bass
noise.
just permeating through your body without the noise. I could still hear myself breathing over this, but inside, it was such a strange feeling to have. So the closer I got, and I was like, well, I got to check this out. So I go down to one knee, thinking I got to tie my boots, and then I glance up underneath it, and there's absolutely nothing underneath this damn thing. Nothing holding it up whatsoever.
What did the slab look like?
It just looked like a granite slab, but the sheen on it is what caught my attention the most. It was kind of in between being polished or just completely translucent. There was something behind it, but you could tell it had a smooth surface to us. And the only lights that were on in that hangar that we were in were directly over our head, where we were walking through that walkway. And
How big was the slab?
oh God, it was about 20 foot long. It was about 7 foot tall, and I couldn't tell how wide it was. By that point, I was already directly in front of it.
So there's like it would be impossible for a human to even think about picking something like this up.
Oh, there's no way.
Okay.
Even with the construction that we've done, if you had to pick up something like that to move it anywhere, you would need at least 3-4 cranes. But at this point, I'm still down on my knee, and I'm looking, and behind it, I can see 2 people standing. The only thing I can see is their feet, but there's this boulder directly behind it, and it's on the ground. And I glance over my shoulder, and there's a guy with his back turned to me standing in front of another boulder identical of the other one that I could see up underneath the monolithic slab, and he's just pushing it with one hand. And then I assume he's pushing it in the other direction because it's just freely spinning, no wobble. It's like it was attached to the top and the bottom, and it was paper mache. That's how easily this guy was just spinning it around. In the center, looking at the top of it, you could see this black box. I've tried to describe it before, and it was extremely difficult. It just looked like a small black GMTK toolbox that a military mechanic would have or carry around. It wasn't very big, and it just had 2 leads that came off of it. And it looked like it was wrapped in a casing that you could almost see something inside of it, but it wasn't mechanical. It wasn't moving. It didn't have lights. It was just opaque. But it didn't really seem to serve any purpose. But the other boulder had the same thing on top of it.
Did the slab have a black box anywhere near it?
The monolithic slab?
Yeah.
It did.
It did? Where
Yeah.
was that located?
It was on the top near the center where I was feeling most of the vibration. It was like the closer I got to it, that's where it was the most intense, at the center of the slab, where that box was on top of it.
Wow.
Now, at this point, the escort behind me kicks me in the back, says, "Let's go." So we get up, keep going, go down a flight of stairs. That's when we get to what we call the shoot house. You could see old lanes where they had actually used it before as a live fire range underground. And we'd probably only been down there 20 minutes maybe. Father was taking notes on the dimensions, what we needed, what I guess he understood what they wanted. And in that amount of time, we go back upstairs, exact same route that we took on the way down, and everything's empty when we get to the hangar again. Everything, the 2 boulders in the back, the monolithic slab, all of it is absolutely gone. And we weren't, 100 yards below these guys. We were just one flight below them. So whatever it was that they were taking out, we would have heard it. Even the people making noise around it, you would have still been able to hear. We get out of the door to leave. Van's still in the same place. We hop back in. We take that same 15-minute drive back to 18th Airborne Headquarters. My dad said something to one of the other guys that I had recognized that he knew, that I didn't know his name. That guy took everything that my dad had, minus his phones. He took the notes, he took the tapes, everything from him there. The second guy that I recognized, the one that I do know, he was upstairs in the G5 war room in the 18th HHC. And it's just him sitting at the desk as soon as you go into the vault. And he's got 2 pieces of paper. And he's like, I need you to sign this. And it was an NDA. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to sign that. Come on, man. Really? It's like, you know me. I don't give a shit. And my dad just kind of played it off to the same thing. He's like, man, I'm not signing that shit. So that's whenever we leave. At that point, I'm getting ready to go back to Georgia. This is roughly 24 hours later. I get a phone call. It was one of my dad's employees. He's like, hey, man, what's going on? I was, no, not much. Just headed back to work. He said, well, we can't get to work. So what do you mean? He's like, well, everything, they called it the barn where we had all of our equipment stationed, where they would meet before they would go to Fort Bragg. He said, the barn's locked up and everything's gone. I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, everything's gone. So I try to call my dad. I can't get up with him. I was like, just stand fast. I'm coming down there. So I get down there, and like you said, the barn's locked up. Everything down there that I could see, I mean, you can still go there to this day. You can see our staging area and how big it was and all the equipment that we had there. It's absolutely barren. There's nothing there. It's all gone. And my dad at the time lived just around the corner from there. I go up there to his house, and the door is kicked in. I get in there, and my dad's sitting at his couch. And his office is just to the left of his living room, and everything is torn out. Everything is gone. And I was like, what's going on, man? He's like, it's all gone. I was like, do you think this had something to do with Range 19? And he stood up, that man you saw, and he said, don't you ever fucking mention that name to me again. And that was the last time that I got to spend any time face to face with my daddy. A life, a business, everything that we built together. And I got no answers. I had no excuses, no reasons, no answers whatsoever. Just unreturned phone calls. The few times I ever did get a chance to speak to him, it was only my voice being heard. He'd just hang up on me.
He'd hang up on you.
Yeah. I didn't, my God, it wasn't until 2021 that I got to see him again. I didn't get to.
He would just refuse to see you?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it made me wonder, what could somebody threaten you with to make you turn your back on your own child? Shortly after the incident, it was in late 2011, early 2012. I've already been JMPI kitted out for a combat jump. Got the full pack. Got the 1950s weapons case dangling. And I was the first man in the stick. They gave us, told us the 30-second sign. We're all hooked up and ready to go. The jump master's got his arm up, getting ready to hit me in the back. And then we see shuffling, and I'm only one of 12 guys that I jump with every time. It never deviated, no change. That was my team. It didn't matter if it was Conus, O'Conus. Those were my guys, only 12. And a guy from the back shuffles his way to the front, and it's one of the escorts. He is unmistakable. And at first, it just didn't connect with me. It just, I just gave him a, hey, how you doing? And he just winked at me. As soon as that John Master's arm came up and the green light's getting ready to go off, no sooner than it hit and I felt his arm coming down, I feel something slap me on the side of the face, and it was the static line. And that man took off out of the aircraft. And when he did, it snapped my neck. And it pulled me out upside down, deployed my combat gear. Long story short, had a complete oscillation, and I just smacked the ground, and I woke up a month later. Career's over. But whenever I fell out of the aircraft, and I think maybe we were jumping from 800 feet, if I had to guess, that's what it looked like from the horizon. But whenever he hit me going out of the aircraft and the static line went taut and it snapped my neck and I fell out of the craft, I'm not even sure how I fell out, but it deployed my lowering line on the way out. So whenever my canopy did open, it just started a complete oscillation.
Okay.
I remember looking down and seeing daylight and just smack, and it was over.
You think that was an assassination attempt?
I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was.
Is your dad still alive?
No, he's not.
When did he pass?
November 10th, 2021.
How?
Well, that's, they said that he had aggressive cancer that they found late, that he was just ravaged. It was all over. And I know shit happens. I'm no stranger to that. With our careers and all the guys in this room, none of us are strangers to things happening. We have a better way of accepting it than most people do, I think. But I will never believe that my father died of cancer or natural causes. Not because he couldn't have been taken. We're all measured. It was just he was healthy. And then in 2 months, he went from being 240 pounds to 105. Now, I took his hand. I said, look, man, I don't even know if you can talk. He had the chemo scars or some looked like, I assume, were chemo burns on his mouth. It was just these gnarly burns on his face. And his eyes were just racked with jaundice. And I was like, man, we're square. I don't care what happened. I love you. And a tear went down his cheek, and I was asked to leave. He started to code, and that was the last time I saw him. When my father died, not even a week after I buried that man, I'm at our new house at the beach. Nobody knew I'd been there. I hadn't even changed my driver's license over. I hadn't even told the VA that's where I'm living. Not even a week after that man was buried, I get a knock at the door. It's that same guy who cut me out of the door. Hands me a note. It said, thinking of you. He's like, hey, sorry about your loss, buddy. What would you do? And Dr. Greer asked me, he said, well, did you feel like they were trying to intimidate you or they're trying to hurt you? Absolutely not. If that was the case, I would have never seen it coming. To me, it just felt like somebody looking you dead in the eye and said, I can touch you anytime I want.